Dr. Medina, is our dual language two-way program gentrified? So first and foremost, I want to clarify the difference between a dual language one-way and a dual language two-way program. So in terms of programming, biliteracy instructional practices, language allocation plans, everything is the same in a dual language one-way and a dual language two-way program. The only difference is the makeup of the students. So in a dual language two-way program, we would have kids who language more readily in Spanish, as an example, and we would bring in about 50% of the kids that also language more readily in English. In this way, the kids can be linguistic and cultural models for one another. In a dual language one-way program, all of the kids would language Spanish, as an example, more readily. But both are equally fabulous. Both are supported by the research. So, Dr. Medina, in a dual language two-way program where we have kids that language more readily in English and also language more readily in Spanish or French or Urdu or Arabic, how do we know if that dual language two-way program is gentrified? So there are 5 signs that I would hope that you would reflect on to see, is our dual language two-way program gentrified? Number 1, if we are marketing our dual language two-way program as a way for all students to become global citizens, but are not equally also mentioning that dual language two-way programming, first and foremost, is about reparation to the students who we have caused linguistic trauma to in a U.S. educational context, then perhaps we are gentrified because we are forgetting and are not stating overtly the why of dual language programming. Dual language two-way programs are not about giving kids who already carry a lot of privilege more privilege. Dual language two-way programs at the core are about serving the students who are adding English to their linguistic repertoire. And we have to say that to the community, because if we don't, then we are on the verge or are already gentrified. Number 2, reflect on who are the students that are being praised and whose experiences are being amplified in a dual language two-way program. Because often in a dual language two-way program, we'll get very excited when a student with racial privilege, a white child, languages in Spanish, as an example, but we won't be as equally excited when a student that languages in Spanish more readily also is adding English to his, her, or their linguistic repertoire. And so who are the kids that we are oohing and awing about? Who are the kids that we show on our videos? Because if it is not the kids who are adding English to their linguistic repertoire, if it's the kids who come from privilege, then you know that your program is gentrified. Number 3, who are the families that are most involved in your dual language two-way program? Is it the families that are Spanish speaking, the ones that language Spanish more readily at home? Or is it the families that carry linguistic, socioeconomic, racial privilege, among others? Because if it is white families that are pushing and driving the dual language two-way program, they're the ones that are at all the meetings, then we already know that that program is gentrified. Now, I know that at least some of you are thinking, but our Spanish-speaking families, they just are not as involved. That's on us. Remember that many of those Spanish-speaking families, the reason they are hesitant about dual language programming is because they've experienced linguistic trauma and linguistic oppression themselves. And so in order to protect their children, sometimes they're weary about enrolling their kids in a dual language two-way program. But that's on us. We need to clarify. First and foremost, this program is reparation for your children, not about creating more privilege for others. That's on us. Ooh, this is getting good. Number 3, if we are creating assessments specifically to weed out the kids that are languaging more readily in Spanish, as an example, then we know that we are gentrified, because it doesn't matter if a student that languages in Spanish comes in on the last day of school. It doesn't matter if they come in as a 1st grader, 5th grader, or a 12th grader. If we offer dual language two-way programming, then that child deserves the most culturally and linguistically sustaining program model. Because if we are assessing them to pull them out of dual language programming, we are linguistic oppressors. That is gentrification. Kids need access to the most sustaining program model that we offer. And finally, number 5, if we are in a school district that has actually created dual language programs in affluent neighborhoods rather than in neighborhood schools where we have a lot of kids that are adding English to their linguistic repertoire, then we know that we have become gentrified because we are nervous that the families with privilege will not send their kids into those schools. And by going along, we too have acknowledged our linguistic oppression and the fact that we've actually created a pathway to the gentrification of a dual language two-way program. Now, these 5 things that I'm asking you to consider, important, but I don't want you to feel like we cannot overcome these obstacles. Next week, what I will do is I will focus on if we are on the road or if we are already gentrified in our dual language two-way program, what are some of the things that we can do to move away from that? Chanclazo, mira. Ay, no te hagas. Sana, sana, colita de rana. Put some Vicks on it. It'll be okay. We have to speak honestly about the gentrification of dual language two-way programs. Adios.